So the way that we've been recording lately, because of work and kids, it being summertime, we have kind of stacked episodes.
Yeah, we've
Right. So, we'll record a couple and then set them up to release at future days. So it's been a couple of weeks since we recorded anything. And since then, there have been several celebrity deaths
mm,
that are kind of,
I always this is such a weird thing to harp on. I always like considering it passings or I don't know. It always seems weird to me when I see the notifications on Yahoo and like so and so dead. Like it's just so I don't know.
what I mean, because it changes it by saying passing.
I guess you're
Um,
probably
it's
right.
it's a it's just a death is all that it
Yeah.
is. Anyways, okay, so there's been several celebrities that have passed away that I would have considered, um, maybe not super A-list or ones that you may have heard of, but or pretty up there.
A lot of great character actors have passed away in the last couple months and weeks.
Treat Williams.
Yes.
I know. I believe his was a motorcycle accident, wasn't
I
it?
think you're right. Yeah.
He's been around forever. Like, I think the first thing that I can really remember Treat Williams in was this WB or CW, I guess I don't know what it was at the time. Um, teen melodrama, uh, where they were in the small town in Colorado. Do you know what I'm talking about?
I mean, I think I need a little bit more. It's not that that's not this
Everwood. It was called Everwood.
Everwood.
Everwood. And he was a doctor, and his son was kind of troubled.
All of those like early 2000s WB melodramas kind of
Right.
run together, but
Yeah, 2002 I think is when this one started, and it had several people in it. Emily Van Camp, Gregory Smith, who um I always remember because I would get him, and oh, what is his name? The British one who played Xavier.
Patrick Stewart.
No, no, obviously not Patrick Stewart.
Well, I
The
don't know.
young version of Patrick Stewart.
Oh, James
McAvoy. I always
Yeah.
get him and James McAvoy mixed up. They look very similar, um but Chris Pratt actually was one of his first big roles, was in Everwood as well.
Oh,
So yeah, I remember like that. But Treat Williams was around forever. He went back to hair, didn't he?
yeah.
So yeah, so I like that one was I he that's the one that you don't really expect. Um,
Well, you were just talking about Julian
Well,
Sands.
Julian Sands, yeah. Julian Sands, of course, he's been missing for some time after a hiking trip, I believe,
Yeah.
and his remains were just found, and which was incredibly sad. He was um, pretty young. What do you remember Julian Sands from?
Oh, he's one of those actors I remember from just popping up here. They had such a distinctive face and voice. Of course, when you ask me, what do I remember him from? You completely draw a blank. But he's one of those guys that, again, he just had a very distinctive face. I just remember
He
that.
was one of those character actors that was in so many things, and when you saw him, you're like, "Oh, that guy." But
Yeah,
he was such
he
a
was one of those. He was one of those that guys. There are
yeah,
there are certain people, guys and gals in Hollywood, character actors that are just kind of the that guy
yeah.
or that girl that you
Hmm.
know from everything. But if you ever try to like pinpoint them, you don't remember their names. You don't remember
Well,
their
he
face.
goes back to the 80s, and he's like, when you talk about a prolific actor, he's been actively working for so long. Um, and then doing things like, I want to say he was the lead in Boxing Helena. So, like, really interesting kind of work.
Mm,
Not, not, um, not your run of the mill. He's not a Tom Cruise.
No.
He's doing things that are maybe a little bit more interesting that you wouldn't necessarily call a blockbuster, but um, are definitely um, more heartfelt, I think, in
Mm.
works of art than I would say a lot of stuff was. Of course, one of the big ones, Alan Arkin.
Who just passed away today as we are recording this. Yeah, now that's a guy that I know from a lot of things.
Hmm.
And a lot he's one of these guys that he like I said he was working very steadily, but it seems like he really had gained a second wind later in life. He won his
Yeah.
Oscar for Little Miss Sunshine. He like steals the show in Argo, which rhymes. He was in Get Smart with Steve Carell.
Like he was.
I mean, and
I mean, he was in shows up like this year.
yeah,
He was still doing stuff. He was almost 90.
the first thing I remember him in, and it's so funny because you watch it now, you can again because he gains so much notoriety as an older man. Um, but the thing I first saw him in was The Rocketeer,
Oh my gosh.
like way back in the day. But yeah, oh my god, he was so funny and just like I say, stole every movie he was in.
Right. Yeah, so like he's even did some voice work. His last credit on IMDb was the Minions,
Oh my
actually.
goodness.
So yeah.
Um, another loss. Miss Glinda Jackson, well known British actor. Of course, for me, this sounds ridiculous, but it's the same way it's the first way I was ever exposed to In the Navy, and um, you know. Uh, we get around, but I first knew Glinda Jackson from her appearance on the Muppet Show,
Oh gosh.
where she was or
I had no idea where that was
for
going.
reasons unknown, she was like a pirate, and she like turned the theater into like a pirate ship. She like hijacked the theater and like turned
I
into a
mean, why
pirate ship.
not?
It was amazing, and that I've seen her in several things since, but the one I will always remember is it's her in the pirate ship.
Oh my goodness. Yeah, it's been
Um,
quite a time of
yeah.
people passing.
One more that I'll just cover because again we don't want to. We could be here forever just doing everybody who's passed away. But another great character actor, Ray Stevenson,
Hmm.
who played Volgar. I can't. The big guy in the Thor movies. He was the second Punisher for the Punisher War Journal. However many people remember that movie. He just had some role in one of the new Star Wars shows, which apparently everybody really liked. I don't know because I've kind of given up on Star Wars, but that's beside the point.
Uh,
But another one of those really great character actors who, especially in these last couple years, uh,
well, he was
really
only
brought it.
58, and
Yeah.
as far as I know, they haven't really found a cause of death for him. So that, which is, one of the things we were talking about was you expect someone like Alan Arkin or Glenda Jackson, you expect those kind of deaths. But then you have the deaths like Julian Sands or Ray Stevenson that are kind of unusual. Brittany Murphy is one that comes to mind.
Yeah.
You know, um,
Well, don't not wanting to open up too many old wounds here, but Chadwick Boseman.
True.
When that news hit, nobody was expecting it.
Well, true, but that wasn't I mean more like
Uh,
mysterious kind of deaths as opposed to like yeah, Chadwick Boseman, it did come out of the blue, but it was not like he had advanced
mm,
cancer. So whereas like Brittany Murphy, there's still uh different theories about how she passed away, especially considering her her husband died in almost the exact same manner
mm,
not long after her death. So, yeah, so there are some unusual deaths that are in the stratosphere, and to have a couple in just the last couple of months with Julian Sands and Ray Stevenson is a little unusual. I
Mm,
think about Bob Saget last year.
yeah, because that one,
Hmm.
like I say, people were still not quite sure
No, I think
what was going on there.
the last thing I read said something about he had a head injury early on, and then it
Mm,
like kind of bled into his brain. And
yeah,
but yeah, so we're trying, like, we like to remember the good memories of the celebrities that have passed. Um, kind of recognize the ones that are not maybe the biggest names
yeah.
in the zeitgeist, but still, put in their time, put in their work,
I,
and
wa-
deserve
I
recognition.
want to bring up one more before we and kind of along what you were saying of lesser known. Another celebrity, I guess, quote unquote, celebrity we lost around March, a director by the name of Burt I. Gordon, who most people probably don't know unless you're a fan of Mystery Science Theater 3000. Because Burt I. Gordon was like the king of the B movies.
Ah.
He was the king of the drive-in monster movies. Village of the Giants, Tormented, The Amazing Colossal Man, Beginning of the End, and while I love Mystery Science Theater and his movies are kind of highlights of that show, I think it's unfair to kind of classify him as a lot of people have with some of the other directors they featured a lot on there as this kind of talentless hack. I think he had a lot of talent, and I think he did a lot with the budgets he had and the special effects that were available to him.
Right.
He's one of those guys. I think he's kind of a step up from Ed Wood. That when I watch a Bird Eye Gordon movie, I really see the love for the movie in it.
Right.
You can tell that he's having fun making this movie. And I will take that over a million, soulless box office, Hollywood blockbusters. I will take a film where someone is clearly having fun, like almost every time. And I kind of wanted to bring that up. Of course, a lot of people have passed. We could sit here and go through all of them, but I just on that topic of kind of lesser known people who deserve that moment. Hang on, the Ziggy is
Hey, Alexa, alarm off.
raw, uncut. If we
Uh,
had a producer, they would edit that out.
uh, sorry, we are baking potatoes.
That's bacon potatoes.
Anyway, speaking of having fun, soulless blockbusters, we're gonna get into a discussion of the latest Indiana Jones movie after this. And be warned, there will be
Yes,
spoilers.
we have to talk about spoilers. So if you want to see it pure, untouched, virginal, then do that, and then come back and listen to us because we're gonna ruin it.
We'll be back in a moment. And we're back, and you will be happy to know I have turned over the potatoes and they will continue baking. Uh,
uh, I know you were all on the edge of your seats there. I have to say, I'm kind of excited about this because we are doing this review old school drive home review style,
right.
meaning we have just watched the movie and we're giving you our raw, uncut, off the cuff, no thinking it through or planning it out review.
Okay, you got a little excited there, honey. Wipe the drool. So yes, Brandon, when he was doing because of course he originated the Drive Home Reviews podcast 7 years ago,
Yeah.
and he would record them on his way home from the movie theater. Well, we now currently live a mile, if that, from
I
the movie
mean,
theater.
that really wouldn't have stopped me because
You would just drive around
I would like the movie theater was literally 5 minutes from my house and or my
right.
apartment, so I just drove around the block for 20 minutes until
Yes,
I
I think
finished it.
more apt is the fact that we now are in a two working person household where we don't always necessarily have the chance
That's
to drive
true.
around
That is very true.
for that amount of time. And but right now we just got home from
Yep.
watching uh Indiana Jones and the Dial of Destiny, which I still think just does not sound like an actual movie.
Yeah.
It sounds like a phone commercial.
It,
Like
yeah. You expect any moment for someone to pop up like, well, Indy, if you don't want to get charged for your long distance calls, then you need the dial of destiny. Of course, we don't use phones like that anymore. Do you remember like dial down the center for 1-800-collect? Or like, dial down the center. That was like their
oh
big
no.
catchphrase.
No, I don't remember the Dial Down the Center.
Oh yeah.
I do remember though, like when I first went off to college, oh gosh, 2000, early 2000s, um, not having a cell phone and like literally like having the long distance uh I would get those long distance
The
phone
phone cards,
cards,
I
yeah,
use
with the
those.
minutes,
I
and
use
I
those.
had that memorized, man.
Yeah.
Like, cause you had to dial in the number and then like a 16-digit
Yep.
code.
I remember that.
I had my phone card
I used a
memorized.
couple of those when I went on
Woo.
college trips to call home.
Now I can barely remember my own phone number.
we
Uh,
are off on a tangent.
anyways, let's talk
But
indie.
uh
Okay, so let's talk your history with Indiana Jones.
okay. My history is very similar to a lot of people my age's history with Indy. He was a mainstay of your movie watching rotation back in the 80s. I think the first one I saw in the theater uh, was Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade with Sean Connery, which is my favorite Indy movie.
It's because
Um,
Leonardo DiCaprio was in it.
Leonardo DiCaprio is not in it.
Is that Jonathan Brandis? Who
It
is
is
that?
not Jonathan. It's
Who is it?
River Phoenix.
Oh my gosh.
I was like, Leonardo DiCaprio?
Oh my
What
goodness.
movie?
I just got all my blonde 90s heartthrobs
You
mixed up.
did. Holy crap.
Oh wow.
But yeah, it's a movie that's the original three are movies that were made to age well. The action is still fun. The character is still energetic and entertaining. The situations he gets into, and the way he gets out of them are still heart pounding. Those original three were made to last.
I think a lot like when you're making a period piece like that, those you can make them like that to last.
Mm.
Whereas if you have something that's set in the 2000s, it's going to age. So yeah, I think the period pieces like that are made to last. Um, of course, this has been a point of contention with the youngest daughter and Brandon, is that you have insisted that there were only 3 movies up to this point, and the 4th was just released.
That's right. There are only 3 Indiana Jones movies until now, and anybody who thinks differently, it has a fever dream. Because if you think Kingdom of the Crystal Skull exists, you're wrong. It faded from existence.
Oh my goodness, that was a
God.
hot mess.
I told you this story, but what I remember most about that movie is that it came out the exact same year as the sequel movie to The X-Files. The X-Files, I Want to Believe, was released the same year. And that was like one of the first years I was living in Tennessee, and a friend of mine and I went and watched both movies. And we left The X-Files going, it wasn't about aliens. And then we left Indiana Jones going, it was about aliens.
Right.
Like that. Though I feel those things got reversed.
So we start this movie with Indy set like it's during the end, like the tail end of World War II, so 1944. He is trying to find the Lance of Christ. He's trying to steal it back from the Nazis, which we were discussing this earlier. What one of the ways that Indiana Jones kind of toes the line of being problematic about, stealing artifacts from different, you know, um, places in the world and putting them in museums is that in the Indiana Jones movie, he's not necessarily taking them from the indigenous people as much as rescuing them from Nazis.
I'm gonna have to say no, because actually, as I'm thinking about it, no. As Raiders of the Lost Ark is opening up, he's stealing it to sell to a museum.
Yeah,
He's
yeah,
selling them, and even at the beginning of Last Crusade, I believe the cross that he's after, um, he's just stealing it from someone who is also stealing it. It's been
right. He's stealing
um
it from the other Tomb Raider,
yeah.
which is that's the one where he replaces it with a bag of sand?
No, that's the
No.
first one where he does
Okay.
that.
So yeah, so he definitely toes the line with he nothing like that happens with him in this one, because I think that it would bring up too much discussion of, is Indy problematic? And of course Indy is problematic. But anyways, we start off with him trying to steal these artifacts back from the Nazis, as the Nazis are either taking off with them or completely destroying everything. And then Mads Mikkelsen is there as a scientist.
Good old Mads Mikkelsen.
Um, Boy, can he play a creepy guy?
Yeah.
Like, if you are gonna get somebody to play a mad scientist, who else is there?
Ironically,
Like,
the only franchise he hasn't played a heavy in is Star Wars, where
hmm.
where he was a nice guy in Star Wars. It was like that kind of threw me off. It's like the first time I saw Sean Bean not playing a villain. It's like I was like, wait a minute, you're supposed to be mean.
uh,
Um,
so then, of course, and then he gets captured. His friend
it's
Toby Jones is there.
I think if
There,
you're making a World War II prequel or something, that you have to have Toby
I
Jones in it.
think you
I
do.
think, especially because Captain America and yeah.
But he plays the good guy in this one.
Yeah, he does. He does.
So
He's
yes.
another one I was waiting for him to betray him. I was waiting. It's like, is Toby Jones gonna be wormy? No, he's a nice guy.
So we have all of this happening, and it's happening in 1944. And for a moment, I was nervous that we were going to have to watch an entire movie with um, Harrison Ford in CGI young face. But luckily, it's only, the first, what do you say, 20 minutes of the
20,
movie?
like way too long.
Yeah, like,
Like
because
way too
the
long.
fighting on top of the train really went over, like, it went on for too long.
It's like, and Indy is known for these long pre-credit sequences, or not even pre-credit sequences, but like pre-action sequences, pre-thrust of the movie. I don't know what you call it. Pre-inciting incident action scenes. This one
Basically,
just
it's starting off movies with a real big jump.
yeah.
So, and it just went on for too long. And I think it went on for too long in the dark.
Yeah, well, I think that's to help hide the CGI.
CGI. Right. Which, okay, we were talking about this earlier. The CGI on his face didn't bother me as much as some of the other CGI.
Yeah.
Like, there's a part where a missile falls through the house, and they easily could have done that with practical effects.
This is a thing I'm going to say, and I realize that it is a very
Is it?
This
is a thing I'm going to say.
It's a very hypocritical thing.
Okay.
So I don't see where the line is. I was trying to justify this to myself in in the theater, because I was thinking about that. And it's, another thing I really love about the original 3 Indiana Jones movies is a lot of, just because it's what they had to do, a lot of it was practical
effects, yeah.
Miniatures, green screen.
Right.
And I feel like, because those were handmade effects, they they fit the tone of the indie films better than the CGI. For those who don't know, the Indiana Jones films, like Star Wars, were inspired by the cliffhanger movie serials of the 30s and 40s that George Lucas loved. They were, and in those things, the hero was always in over his head. It was always a how you're going to get out of this latest predicament, and you can see that, especially in Raiders, how the film is almost divided up into chapters with cliffhangers at the end of each one.
Hmm.
And I think because of the practical effects, it seems like it was more in tune with that inspiration, because those had a lot of handmade effects, miniatures, because they didn't have budgets. And I think that's why in an Indiana Jones movie, I much prefer practical effects to CGI, because I feel like it just makes it feel more grounded, even though the special effects in all the indie movies are crazy. I think half the time people aren't mad that the stunts are crazy. They're mad at the CGI and they just don't know it.
So with the CGI here, like I tend to stand on the line of if you can do it with practical effects, like a big metal missile falling through the floor and taking a rug with it, like that would not be hard to do with practical effects. Like a starting film student would be able to do that with practical effects. Okay. Um, but if there's something that is like you're not going to be able to do it when they're flying into the storm at the end, like I don't mind that, because
Yeah.
how are you going to recreate, like that
Yeah.
looks really cool, it looks like a real storm.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I had more issue with everything being CGI in the beginning than I did with his face. I think they actually did a pretty
Yeah.
good job with the CGI.
Yeah, but
on his face.
I think you even said it as we were leaving, is the problem with extended periods of that is that it starts to look like a cutscene from a video game,
Right.
because so much is CGI.
Um,
Even the lead actor, so it starts looking
nuts.
yeah, or just there's a flatness to it that you just can't get
Right.
rid of.
But luckily, that was only like the first 20 minutes. Then he wakes up in the 60s, 1969,
Yeah.
I believe.
Yeah, like right after the Apollo 11 astronauts returned.
Right. So, like, we have this. It's still a period piece, and it's a period piece that's, I think, in the 90s. I feel like we saw a lot of movies from the 60s, but it's kind of fallen out of fashion.
Yeah.
And I really enjoy seeing movies set in the 60s.
Well, I think it's what they kind of had to, if they're following Harrison Ford to now what age he is and what age Indiana Jones would be at that.
And I have to say, like, Harrison Ford, for being the age that he is, how old is Harrison Ford?
I have no idea.
For being the age he is, his first scene in the 60s has him being, coming out of a drunken sleep in his boxers, and he is in really good shape.
I mean, as good a shape as someone his age can be.
I mean, yeah.
I mean, he was born in 1942. So I mean,
how old does that make him?
I don't ask me math.
Let me see. Hold on, I'm gonna look it up.
So anyway, while she's looking that up, let's just get back to this. So anyway,
80. He's 80. I mean, he still kind of has abs.
Yeah, he did.
So, yeah. So we have him there, and he's teaching at a college, and he's disgruntled and grumpy.
Yeah, okay. So the important facts to know. So from when we last left him in that non-existent fourth film,
right?
Apparently his son, played by Shia LaBeouf, was killed in they didn't never say which war. I'm assuming.
I would assume the Korean.
Yeah, or it may have been Vietnam. I think that was going on at the time. So,
right.
But Shia LaBeouf's character is dead,
which was, I think, a really good way to kind of tie it up.
And of course,
he and Marion
are in the process of getting divorced,
right.
just out of mutual heartbreak. So Indy's kind of at his lowest point,
right
now that we've ever seen him. So that's That's fact number one. Number two, our magic MacGuffin this time, yes, is the Dial of Destiny,
The Dial
which
of Destiny.
which is supposedly a thing invented by Archimedes.
Okay,
That
I have to stop you for a second
okay.
because I spent too much of the movie thinking that I wish that I had a dog so I could name him Barkimedes.
Oh my god.
Anyways, continue on.
And that what it turns out, so brace yourselves here, is that Archimedes in something something BC invented this thing with math. His math was so good
Right.
that he invented a thing that can detect temporal shifts and could help you
Time fissures.
and help you travel through time.
Right. Well, at first they thought that it could just predict the weather
Yeah.
and things like earthquakes, but then Toby Jones's character actually goes kind of insane,
And obsesses with it.
obsessed over it, and he realizes that it can detect time fissures as well. But he doesn't. They don't find the entire Dial of Destiny. They've only found half of it,
Yeah.
and they have to find this.
You have to find a tablet that's going
That-
to tell you where the other half is. So it's
like a multi-step process.
It's a multi-fetch quest.
Yes.
You got to go here and do a thing, and then go there and do a thing, and there'll be a lot of chase scenes
Right.
in the interim.
Well, and then we have who I would have never have picked Phoebe Waller-Bridge to be in an action movie. Like that would not be. She did that show Fleabag.
Yeah.
I never it never would have crossed my mind to put her in a movie like this, but I think she did a great job.
She is she's our new protege, young kid,
She is
that's on the adventure with Indy and
Toby Jones's daughter, and she is, she saw this drive her dad crazy, and instead of going in the archaeological, I'm going to dig up things and take them to museum route, she's decided that the only thing she can trust is money. So she's finding artifacts and auctioning them off.
So she's a criminal. She's snide.
And then we've got
sardonic.
The CIA following her.
Yeah, but it turns out they're not the CIA. It's Mads.
No. Well, the CIA is there.
Yes.
But the CIA agent is played by Shawnette Renee Wilson, who is just one of the most beautiful women. She is on that show, The Resident. But she's totally beautiful. The style in her style is impeccable. Very Foxy Brown. Pam Grier, 1970s. Anyways, so she's a CIA agent, and she is there. She has escorted Mads Mikkelsen and crew because he's supposed to receive a presidential.
Well, Mads' character is, kind of playing off of the thing that after the war we gave refuge to a lot of Nazi scientists and he's supposed to be that. He's a former Nazi scientist. He's a very Hail Hydra. He's infiltrated his CIA with a bunch of his fellow countrymen, and long story short, they want the Dial of Destiny so that they can go back in time, and Mads wants it literally so he can kill Hitler and take Hitler's place.
Right.
Because he blames Hitler for the Nazis losing the war.
Well, not necessarily that. He thinks that by seeing the mistakes that Hitler made, that he can do it, quote unquote, correctly, and that if they can kill Hitler and blame it on the Allied forces, then the fervor of the people will carry them through.
So I think right away, first thing, as you gentle listeners can tell, is we have one of the first major problems. This is a very convoluted fucking story.
Right.
It is, and I'm sorry, and I you can't help not. Like, I can expect that from a Bond movie. It starts out with a theft of this. You go here and find out that it has something to do with this. You go here and the picture gets bigger and bigger and bigger the longer you go. An Indiana Jones film is simple. Find the Lost Ark before the Nazis do. But up,
Right.
up, but up.
Right.
You know, and yes, he had to go to find Marion to get the thing for the top of the staff, but it's a pretty straightforward, find the Holy Grail, rescue your dad, da 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 da. But
Well,
this one is it's
it
all
goes in a
over the
lot of
place.
it goes in a lot of directions, and it does involve a lot of like kind of spots all over,
Yeah, running,
you
jumping,
know.
climbing trees.
Well, and it sorry, I just we talked about this on the way home. In the first couple of movies, yes, they found the religious artifacts, but there was no ever any proof. Like there was no proof that the Ark of the Covenant would kill all of the people like they wanted it to. You know,
Yeah,
like that didn't actually happen. And
till the end of the movie.
here, um, the it actually does
I
change the time.
well, I
Like
think
spoiler alert, but like they do
yeah.
actually go back in time.
Well, I think okay. So once again, comparing it to the classic indie films, the looking at Raiders of the Lost Ark, yes, it proves that this thing had some kind of power to it because it melts all the Nazis. But the film is about Indy accepting that there is things he doesn't understand, and therefore just that little bit of power is enough to get that thematic principle across. The search for the Holy Grail in Last Crusade is not actually the search for the Holy Grail; it's the search for the reconnection with his father. So these things are still tied into
Well, I would
major character elements. And I think, as like we were talking about, the use of religious iconography, that's something that's tied to our history, whether
right.
you're religious or not. That's a part of our history, or it can be part of our mythology if you prefer. But that's part of us. Aliens and time travel, not so much, unless you're watching Star Trek, which I'm not.
So wait. Oh, okay, I get what you mean.
Yeah.
Um, Archimedes did come up with a lot of cool stuff, but I wish they would have just used something that was true. You know, like something that was
Or
real.
we even mentioned this, and again, this is where the spoilers are going to come in, folks. I would have been okay with it if they're flying towards the Fisher, they're going in, and at the last minute they turn around or Indy stops them, and they never go through, and you never know would it have actually worked.
Right.
I would have said, okay, that's enough. That's good enough. There's the mystery, there's the question, and again, that's not the whole point of the story. The point of the story is him moving on after tragedy and all of this, and finding a place for himself in the modern world and all of that. But they fucking go back in time and meet Archimedes. Okay?
That was too much.
Like Doctor Who.
They did go back in time and meet Archimedes. That was um
Like Doctor
well,
Who meets Mr. Peabody.
I kind of I want to delve more into the central idea of this, or the central meaning of this, here in a second, but we need to take a break. We'll be back in just a moment. And we're back. So I, I feel like in the search for the dial, in the search for all of this, he's I think you have two different searches going on. I think you have the Indiana Jones one, and then I think you have the Phoebe Waller-Bridge one. Her character, which her name is, I'm just thinking, I keep thinking Wombat.
That's his nickname for her.
Oh,
Helena.
Helena Shaw. Um, and I think you have two different searches that they converge. And yes, he's looking for his own place, but really, like, he is trying to figure out how to fix the mistakes that time has caused. You know, he's trying to figure out how, like, is is it possible that he can regain who he was before? Is it possible that he can reestablish his relationship with um with Marion, or is it possible that he is going to be able to find his own kind of found family and community? And then you also have the I think that Helena's search is more along the lines of regaining her morality, regaining her focus on what's important to her. Because I think that watching her father descend into madness kind of set her on one path, but I think she wants to come back and and regain that sense of being a good person and having the community around you.
Okay.
So, anyways,
No, I don't disagree with any of that. Um, but I will say I think in both cases, I think it was not handled really well.
okay.
I feel that Indy's character arc in this one. Well, I agree with you. I think that that is what it was going on. It's just very buried. He feels like he's going on this adventure because it's in an Indiana Jones movie, and he kind of has to. They try to give the reason that he needs the stuff because he's been framed for murder, but that's dropped pretty quickly. And then it's just, oh, this is what I do, and I don't know. I don't feel the urgency from him.
I would
In
disagree. I disagree with you. I feel like there is an urgency in getting that artifact back from the or the bad guys. Like, which is kind of the driving force in all of the other ones
I
as
don't know, because
well.
I don't feel like he has that urgency or the personal stake in it so much as this is I have to get it from the bad guys because they're the bad guys, as opposed to there's a personal stake in it for him.
I disagree because several times he gives up the artifact to save Helena or Teddy, who is Helena's little sidekick, her little short round.
Yeah,
So, like, I disagree. I think that he does have a personal stake in it, and I
I'm
think
not
we
saying
see glimpses of
I'm
it.
not saying he doesn't have a personal stake. I'm just feeling that it was not handled as well
I
in
don't know.
this one. Um,
I think that there are limitations to what you can expect from an 80-year-old actor.
I don't think there are.
Okay.
Especially when it's venerable 80. I think 80-year-old actors are the ones that are the best.
Okay,
You
but
know,
I would have to say that I would never hold Harrison Ford up as the most talented actor. Good, yes. Great at being Indiana Jones, but it's not like I'm going, oh man, he must have studied
I
Stanislavski. Like,
I don't see in my thing is I don't blame the uh, the actor in this one. I blame the writing. I think the
oh,
writing is
you always blame the writing.
well. That's where it starts.
Because, ladies and
You
gentlemen
know,
of the audience, it's because he is a playwright.
that's
He
right.
is a writer, so he always blames the writing.
That's right. I'm also a director, so I'll also blame the direction.
Which
Yeah.
this one was not
And I
directed by Steven
no,
Spielberg, so
you know,
yeah.
and I feel again I agree with you with Helena's character arc. I believe this movie was trying to be. This movie was my fear going into this film was that it was going to be too much of the Force Awakens, where it was going to be too much.
Handing it down to the next Jedi.
Yeah, well, not so much even that. I don't mind that. The too much pandering. The hey fans, remember
Oh.
this? Too many member berries. Remember this? Remember the walkers? I remember. That kind of thing. And I'm happy to say it didn't do that. It had like one really cute fan nod, which I thought was really, really good there at the end. But I think what this film was actually trying to be, because you asked this question as the credits were rolling, I think this movie was trying to be Creed.
That is not what I said.
No, no, you asked the question. What you asked was, do you think they are going to try to continue on with
With
Helena
as
taking over the role?
right.
And I do think that's what the purpose of this movie actually is, was to test her out and to see if the fans accept her. And if they like this movie well enough, then yes, they can go off and do a spin-off series with her now. That's because that's what they were going to try to do with Shia LaBeouf back in the day. There was a time, ladies and gentlemen, some of you may be too young to remember this, when movie studios thought that what audiences wanted was to have themselves represented by Shia LaBeouf. Movie studios took this guy, put him out in front of the audience and said, this is your point of view character. This is you. And people rejected that.
Yeah.
Said, I am not that.
Right.
Okay.
And it's not to say, I think that he is talented. I just think that he is not talented in the way that people wanted him to be.
Yeah.
Um,
But anyway.
So here's the question I have for you. Would you continue watching a movie with Helena as our main explorer? And Harrison Ford kind of taking a, more of a Sean Connery type of role.
Well, again, I think he'd be more of the Rocky role, more of the mentor,
right,
kind of thing. It would depend on how it was done. I'd have to see it. I'm kind of 50-50 on this one because again, I wasn't very bowled over by her or her character.
Well, see, I disagree. I thought she was wonderful in this.
I was not as jazzed. I think there's potential there when if she is the main character and not having to kind of share screen time. I think there's places you can go with the character, and I think there's fun things you can do.
See, I feel like this goes back to this discussion we've had, where I feel like you're harder on women.
You always
than
accuse
you
me
are
of that,
on men.
and I do not. I do not believe I
feel like you are harder
on the women.
Harder on women in action roles than you are on men.
You always accuse me of that, and I do not agree.
Okay.
I am being honest here.
Okay, well,
and I
disagree with you on her as not in that role. Like, I think that she brings this really, snide attitude, the sarcastic kind of, jokey, fun thing that Indy had back in the day. It was a very off the cuff. She can clearly handle herself in all of the stunt scenes that we saw her in.
Mm-hmm.
And without being like super built muscly either, just like really being really clever and really smart. So I think that, I don't know, I would definitely watch a Phoebe Waller-Bridge led movie.
I'd be interested to see how they did it.
Mm-hmm.
And then I would pass judgment. I think I'm not completely won over by this film, but I see potential. So I think there's room there, but I think she needs the whole movie to herself and to let her character
breathe.
Yes, as opposed to, because to me, I think there's potential there, but I don't see a lot of difference between this character and a lot of other characters, be they male or female.
Mm-hmm.
I think they need to establish her, and I think a movie of her own would help her do that. But I don't know. It's something I'd have to see, honestly.
I am interested to see where they go in the future. And maybe they don't go in a movie direction. It is It is. I would wager part of the Disney.
It is. So yeah.
So
you can see her in a Disney Plus series.
Yeah, like for sure in a series. So I don't know. We'll have to see what happens in the future. Overarching thoughts. Oh, here's a question for you.
Okay.
Who was your favorite callback character moment?
Having Marion come in at the end was...
I thought for sure you'd go with John Rhys-Davies.
I love John Rhys-Davies, but I did feel like his character was there for very much a yay! hey, Sala! And aside from that, didn't really do much.
I liked it
So,
because it was like, Indy brought him over and helped him establish himself, and you got to see his generations of family there. I liked that. I did like the Marion bit at the end.
yeah.
And we were trying to figure out, I still don't know. I don't think Antonio Banderas was in one of the previous movies.
No, he was
He
never.
just
No, he was never. I know that for a fact.
And so he just kind of showed up, but that was nice. I'm glad to see Antonio Banderas
Actually,
still kicking
I
around.
gotta say, like of all the characters, young, old, new, classic, legacy characters, like in this film, the one that caught my attention was one of the henchmen, a gentleman by the name of Oliver Richards,
Oh, is
other
he the huge guy?
otherwise known as the Dutch Giant.
Oh, he was
And
massive.
he is a huge dude.
Oh, he was so
And
big.
like every time he was on screen, I was like, oh my god, I want to see this guy. I want to see more of this guy. I want to see this guy.
Well, he'll probably be in the next, Creed or whatever.
Yeah, he
Next
could be the
boxing
next.
movie.
You know,
Oh.
oh my god, like he does. I was looking him up earlier. He does like comic book conventions dressed as Kratos and all of this. Like he's just a massive dude, and I I think it says a little something, not a good thing, that the character I was most captivated by was the one that had not one word of dialogue.
Yeah, well, I think he grunted in German a couple times. I
No,
don't know. I thought that
not
Boyd Holbrook as the talking evil henchman was kind of interesting. I loved the CIA girl, the Pam Grier character. Like I loved her. Like I was kind of heartbroken when they shot her. So, I don't know. I feel like I was at a different movie than you.
mm.
All right, overarching thoughts.
um it's better than the Kingdom of the Crystal Skull.
Well, that's a low bar.
Yeah, but that is hurtling the lowered bar. Um I just have to say that I it didn't really leave an impression on me.
Huh.
It really didn't. It was there. It was I unlike Kingdom of the Crystal Skull, which tasted like having battery fluid in your mouth.
Ew.
This movie felt like, and I've used this analogy before, felt like chewing gum that had been in your mouth for too long and had lost all the flavor.
I
It's
disagree with that.
there. It's serviceable to satiate your oral fixation, but it leaves no real impression. It's not even. Um, this is almost sad to say. At least with Kingdom of the Crystal Skull, there was stuff there for me to be furious about.
Hmm.
This one, I feel like it's just like, okay, that's there.
Alexa, turn off the timer.
Oh, there it is. The potatoes are
um.
coming.
So
So those are my overarching thoughts.
see, okay, I feel like if you could take out the chunk where they go back in time, um, and kind of rewire that ending a little bit, then I think it would be a perfectly serviceable adventure movie. Um, my problem with it was that, and they did it with the Crystal Skull too. They take this action movie and they inject enough sci-fi, super realistic, like super, futuristic. And they do it because, everything's time travel now. Everything's about multiverses and time travel and, you know, folds in the time space continuum. Thank you, Marvel Cinematic Universe. But I think if you could take that out, that would have still been a really good movie. If you just stayed in 1969, it would have been a really good movie. And you don't have to have those jumps for people to enjoy a good adventure movie. And Jungle Cruise proved that. You know, Jungle Cruise was a better Indiana Jones movie than this because it knew what it was supposed to be doing. Um, but if you could take out that little section, if you could just cut it out with a scalpel, then I think it would be, honestly, I think it would be a solid B movie for me.
It's a C minus for me.
Yeah.
It's a C minus for me. And I just believe that there are certain franchises and certain characters that have a shelf life.
Oh, yeah.
And I think Indy hit his with The Last Crusade. It was the perfect wrap up.
Right.
And everything that has come after that, save for like the Young Indiana Jones Chronicles, but even those were kind of flat.
Well,
I fans, and I can understand this. I'm one that we always want more.
but you don't, it's like, you don't necessarily give them more. It's like a goldfish will eat as much food
Yeah,
as you give it, and then it'll die. Like,
you know, I can understand the idea of you got to trying every so often because you never know when that's going to stick. I said the same thing about Predator, that they should have stopped that franchise years ago, and then they did Prey, which was fucking awesome.
well,
So
so
I
you
get
never
it.
know. Maybe if they reboot it with
Yeah,
Phoebe Waller-Bridge, and it'll
yeah.
be.
So
But I do
you
think
could.
they will have to rethink this idea of stealing artifacts and taking
Right.
them away from indigenous people. Like,
Mm,
I think that maybe if you have Helena working with the indigenous groups and getting their artifacts back, like maybe that works. But yeah, or like maybe she takes on the artifacts in the American Southwest, or there's all kinds of ways that you could go with it where it's not problematic anymore. But yeah, I think if Indiana Jones is going to survive as a franchise, it is going to have to change at this
See,
point.
and I think Indy doesn't need to survive as a franchise. I think Indy as a franchise was done in the 80s.
Mm-hmm.
And I think some things are just not meant to go. There's a reason why back in the day, most film series were three: a beginning, middle, and an end. That's all. And even that's pushing it sometimes. I mean, look at Ghostbusters for
I,
that. You
I can
know,
understand that, but I would have to say I know a very handsome movie reviewer who loves his Creed movies.
I'm not saying it doesn't work. I'm not saying under the right circumstances and the right creative
Mhm.
voice. I mean,
I do think you need new
I,
blood in
I
there,
could go
though.
on for another hour comparing this movie to Creed and why Creed succeeded where I feel this one failed. But I don't
Yes,
think we want to do that.
but here's the issue: is that you're forgetting that before Creed came, there was Rocky Five and Rocky Balboa. This isn't
That's true.
Creed. This is Rocky Balboa.
This is not Rocky Balboa. This is
I knew that would
not.
piss him off.
This is
Anyway,
not Rocky Balboa.
anyways, thank you for joining us. We will be going kind of back. We're going to be reviewing a different streaming movie
Yeah, we
next, I
got
think.
we got some backlog we
That
got to be doing. So we're gonna be doing a podcast of Palooza at some point, getting a lot of. And I'll just throw in this plug here. We are planning on starting another podcast. This one called "Watching Wrestling with My Girlfriend," where
yeah.
we discuss the week in AEW All Elite Wrestling. So if you enjoy what we do here, check us out there. So that's what's going on. We'll be coming back with new reviews soon. So thanks for joining us. Thanks for coming on. Thank you for the impromptu date night, my love.
No, always.
And as always, drive safe, and we will see you at the movies.